The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending the webinar, Tax Technology to Grow Your Commerce and Reduce Risk. The presentation today will be by Vertex, and let me just go through some housekeeping items. The agenda for this morning is going to be introductions, questions, and recordings. But let me just cover the introductions. On the phone or on the line, we have Sammy Janol and Mark Bowman from Vertex. Mark will be doing our presentation today. And if you have any questions, if you don't mind holding those until the end of the presentation, then we'll answer those, and you can put those questions in the little queue over to the right side of your screen. And we are recording this webinar today, and we will be sending that out to anybody that has attended and registered for it. And we'll also put it up on our website as well. So I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Mark and let him just take it away.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for giving us this opportunity to talk to you guys about what everybody likes to talk about, taxation. So a lot of things happening in our area, especially of recent areas. I'm also here with my also partner here, Sammy Janal. He's our channel sales manager. So unless you have the pleasure of meeting one of us, you'll know who we are by our faces here. So looking forward to working with you, either in a virtual or an in-person meeting. So again, thank you very much again for this opportunity. And spoiler alert, there is a happy ending, even if we are talking about taxation. So the first thing that we're going to kind of talk about this morning is, why are people, automating indirect tax? And, again, we hear this of working with a lot of different companies, whether they're, partner firms like yourselves or also directly with customers. There's a lot of reasons why they're actually, coming to companies like Vertex for help around automating their indirect tax. And it's around these three big areas. The first one, obviously, is the not so nice one, the reducing of your audit risk and penalties. We see a lot of people, obviously, in a reactive mode. They get that knock on the door from an auditor, which nobody likes. But then they realize that what they've been doing to date has not been adequate enough, especially when it comes to a time for an audit from a government agency or even a smaller level jurisdiction. There's not enough things in place to help with that audit defense or that the ability to basically justify why tax was collected or not collected. The second item that we see again is around the automation is to improve the internal tax processes. And again, a lot of companies are still doing things manually today, which again works in a lot of smaller firms. But as firms are growing or start to have more obligations and more jurisdictions that they're filing in, they're getting stretched thin. And obviously, a lot of people aren't getting more and more headcount. It's just being put to those same resources that are going ahead and having to do that same work now, or a lot more of the work to get things done. And again, that can happen where there's a lot of now gaps in the either situation of producing the tax returns or in the actual calculation itself. And again, that opens up to that, even back to that first point of the audit risk. The last thing that we see people doing, and a big part of it is the automation, is for the amount of different systems a company has. So, and they want to centralize the tax function, because it's not very nice to have an e-commerce platform, an ERP system. Maybe you have ancillary systems that need types of tax calculations to them, and it's not good to have a separate vendor for each one of those. So it's really nice to be able to centralize all that with one vendor so that you get a consistent answer no matter which application is calling out for a tax calculation need. So again, these are the three biggest reasons why we see a lot of companies calling for companies like ours, Vertex, in help in automating solutions to make that process a lot easier. There's also things on the horizon, these what we call trigger events, that are making people make this decision a lot quicker, or it's actually the forefront of everybody's mind. And if you guys were looking at the newspaper or looking at recent events, or actually even shopping this year, you'll probably notice that, you know, maybe you weren't paying sales taxes a year ago, but this year there's very few places that you won't be able to escape paying sales tax to because of a little decision called the Supreme Court versus Wayfair. This was one of the biggest trigger events that we call in our industry that caused people to actually start taking a closer look at their sales and use tax, basically processes and automation needs. It basically said it's no longer just a requirement that you have a physical presence in a jurisdiction to start collecting tax, or a warehouse or a salesperson. You now can have what's called economic nexus. So you don't have to actually have that physical presence. You just have to have a certain maybe number of transactions in a jurisdiction or a certain dollar amount threshold that you exceed, and you are now responsible for collecting and remitting sales tax for those jurisdictions across the United States. So again, that got a lot of people woken up to that fact that now this is now something that is now on their plate and they're responsible for. And like I said, they are now, it's the top of mind for a lot of people. In addition to that, you know, we see people, obviously, mergers and acquisitions, always a consideration. You know, maybe you were part of a smaller company that gets, you know, acquired by a larger company that has a lot more of a sales tax department or sales tax requirements. Expanding product lines, you know, if you get new product lines, some of those product lines might actually have taxability impact to them. Some of these things might be taxable in some jurisdictions or exempt in others. So again, those types of needs are something that, you know, is keeping them tip-top in people's minds of why automation is a good thing to have. We talked about the expansion in new states, whether that's by, you know, law or by actually, you know, having that physical presence. But then, like I said, a marketplace event. We've got a lot of things going on with marketplace sellers, people getting into the marketplace activities where you're actually, you know, selling other people's goods and services, as well as stuff that we're seeing globally with the reporting requirements, whether that's in the UK with its making tax digital, or even with some of the SAFT requirements in Poland or in Spain, SII. All of those requirements we're seeing across the board where people are taking a closer look at sales, use tax, VAT taxation, and again, why and how Vertex fits into that. So what do you need to look for in a solution when you you decided to make that change, make that decision to actually go ahead and automate? What do you need, some of the items that you need to look for in a solution? And these are some of the high-level items that we have as a checklist. You know, you want to obviously make sure that we can that solution can actually make the tax determination. A nice thing to also do is to manage exceptions, exemptions, and certificates, because again, it's not only important to calculate tax, but also not to calculate tax on those individuals that might be exempt, and also to have that audit defense for those as well. Also, the important part of the actual compliance, the filing of the forms and the remittance of those taxes to those jurisdictions. Also, you want to consider the deployment options for your actual company. You know, is it something that you want hosted? Is it something that you need to have on-prem? Again, consideration that needs to be done. The integration to the different systems that it needs to be, whether that's e-commerce or ERPs. And then last but not least, you know, how important is that vendor? You know, what's that reputation? How reliable are they? All of these are very important things when we're talking about a tax solution. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the complexity of tax. This is just a little graphic here. We're showing the number of taxing jurisdictions across the United States. And you can see there's about 11,000, and maybe there's going to be some expanding in the future as more and more jurisdictions actually need their tax coffers filled with those tax dollars, and they realize that another jurisdiction might be getting that. So again, this is always changing and always in flux. So again, instead of having people worry about keeping track of this, this is where a sales tax solution really comes in handy to actually take this burden off of a particular customer's mind. So that first thing we talked about is, you know, obviously, can it calculate tax? with all those different jurisdictions, all those different geographies, all those different zip codes, can the tax engine handle all those different types of tax, a sales tax, a consumer's use tax, a VAT taxation? Are there special taxes, if you're selling a specific type of item, is for like a battery, is there an extra tax on a battery, or for tires, an environmental fee, etc.? Can the tax engine handle that? In addition to that, do they have the ability to actually keep up to date with that content to make sure that if those rates and rules changes, will they be able to be accounted for so that you're not, holding the bag at the end of the day if something went from being exempt to now being taxable in a specific jurisdiction? The other thing is there might be special rules for a specific industry. If you're in the telecom, or if you're leasing, or if you're doing rental, or you're in retail, there might be special rates and rules according to your specific industry. And you want to look for a tax engine that might be able to handle your specific vertical. The last thing is that geographic coverage. You want a solution not only to be, satisfy you in the United States, North America, but also as, we see a lot more companies going global with how they want to handle their business. You want that tax engine to be able to grow with that business. So when we talked about those industries, we talk about the special tax that's required for some of the things. So again, machinery and equipment might have special rules around it. Consumables for the manufacturing process. If you're offering software as a service, services themselves, certain products, are there sales tax holidays? Does it matter how you're using a product? All of these different things can actually have an impact on how a tax is determined. And again, if your tax engine is configured correctly and things are done and put together correctly, you will not have to have your tax department worry about this. Those tax professionals can actually go ahead and worry about other things, doing higher value functions, because you're handing over that research and that tax determination over to a company like Vertex, where we have over 200 researchers providing that monthly update for those rates and rules in all of these different types of situations and these special unique products and services. So again, a really great way to lessen that burden and make sure that it's handled by somebody's business, 100% business, is taxation. The other thing we always like to talk about too, again, it's important to collect tax, but it's also too to make sure that you're not charging tax to those customers that have an exemption certificate with you. Obviously, there's a lot of different companies that might be exempt from paying tax, whether that's a governmental entity, it could be a school, it could be a hospital, it just could be a customer that has an exemption certificate. So a lot of times we see people with this and a company doesn't have a good way of managing this, or they have a file cabinet or a box where they just throw the certificate in. And again, we had talked about this towards the beginning about the audit defense. The last thing that you want to do is be looking through a box of papers for when somebody comes knocking on your door and saying, why did you exempt certain transactions from paying tax? What's nice about our solutions is that exemption certificate management is built in. So again, in that same area that you're actually determining tax, you're also making sure that you actually maintain why you're not charging tax. So that all-in-one solution is actually solving more than just the problem of taxation. It's giving you the defense for auditors, because again, that's one of the number one reasons that we see there's audit penalties for, is that you're not to be able to justify that exemption. So again, having that traceability, having that repository available to you with the tax engine is a great way to kind of maximize how you're utilizing the software that's being implemented and integrated with the particular ERP or e-commerce platform that you're working with. Obviously, the next item it should be an obvious one, compliance. Whether you want to do this in-house or outsource, again, your vendor should be able to support this, because again, a lot of people want to keep things in-house, and some people want to say, I don't want to do anything with forms or the remittance, please take it all off my hands. So again, a lot of flexibility there to actually do the filings of the different forms in all the different jurisdictions, provide you that reconciliation back to your, ERP for whether it is the accounts payable or the accounts receivable, giving you that full audit trail for the compliance for the jurisdictions, but also for your own internal people to make sure that you've got things buttoned up from a compliance standpoint and for remitting those particular dollars to those different jurisdictions. The next thing we talk about is the deployment options. Obviously, we like to say, one size does not fit all. A lot of people these days are talking about going cloud, but in going cloud, there's different things about that. Availability. Some people are a little bit concerned about the security around cloud. Some people like to really have more control about their environment. So with a company like Vertex, we like to say we give it whatever choice that you want. Do you want it to have it on-premise? Would you like to have full control of things? Would you like to go full cloud where you actually have it as a public cloud solution? Do you want your own private cloud solution? You've got that ability too. Would you actually like to license it and host it yourself? It's nice to know that you've got different capabilities and functions as with your vendor to meet the different needs that your IT department might have on you. Again, depending on how your client or your company works, you might have different directives that might not allow you to go a certain direction. So it's important to have your vendor be able to support you in whatever way that your business needs. And like I said, that might be on-prem, that might be cloud, that might be somewhere in between. So again, it's a good thing to know that your vendor is able to support you. When we talk about the Vertex solutions, we talk about our integrations. Obviously, this call is more focused around the Microsoft integrations that we have and our channel strength there. We also obviously offer a lot more integrations with more familiar platforms as well, SAP, Oracle, e-commerce platforms like Magento, Coupa. All of those things we have what we call a standard integration to via a connector. With the Microsoft suite, you can see we've got all those different platforms that we have a standard connected to, whether it's Nav, GP, AX. Obviously, a lot of energy around the Microsoft world these days around D365 and all its different verticals that they have there. We do have and support all of those particular connectors and those integrations. So again, we're going to be focusing around today's discussion a little bit more and feature a little bit more around the GP and the Business Central ones. But just to let you know that we do have those connections to not only the Microsoft, but the bigger ecosystems of e-commerce and ERP platforms. So when we talk about the Great Plains integration points, I'm just going to leave this slide up here so that you can see this is where we have some of our integration points for when between the tax engine and the GP ERP system. So you can see here for a customer, we have what's called record address cleansing, for giving, if you just have a 5-digit zip code for a particular customer, obviously a 5-digit zip code can be a very large area. But when you do address cleansing, it actually can give you that 9-digit zip, and that 9-digit zip is going to actually help you pinpoint, give you very good accuracy about all the different taxing jurisdictions that are involved, because it might, versus the taxing might be very different from one side of the street to the other. Part of that address cleansing is going to make sure that we get that tax right. Nobody likes to be charged the wrong sales tax, especially when it can differ by a large percentage point or two. The next area that we have the integration to is the sales order processing, between quotes, sales orders, invoices, returns, and then around the receivables management portion of GP, so for invoices and distributing tax functions. We also have this visual here of how that integration works. You can see that Microsoft Dynamics is actually going to make a query out during one of those actual order points, whether it's a sales order or a receivables management invoice entry. It's going to go be processed through our connector for GP, and it's going to go and query out to the actual, what we have here is our indirect tax O-series tax engine for either the address cleansing like we just talked about, or for the actual tax calculation. So it's a request and response that's happening between Great Plains and the Vertex tax engine with XML queries. So again, it's that request response that's happening on a transactional basis, line item level, giving you all that good detail that you will need and recording it again for the compliance aspect of things on the back end as well. When we look over at the next slide here, we're talking about the Business Central, and it's, again, very similar to what we saw for the Great Plains, where we see that on a customer record, it's around the address cleansing, sales, around the quotes and orders, the credit memos, finance charge, and is around the items as well. So again, special taxability for your items or your actual services are supported with our connector to Microsoft Business Central. And again, the visual for the actual connection point to Vertex's tax engine looks very similar to the Great Plains, where again, that query is coming out of Business Central, going through the connector, going to the tax engine, whether that's for the address cleansing or the sales tax call, and then coming back to Business Central with those results over that connector. Okay. And what does that look like? You know, and this is a screenshot from Great Plains. So, you know, if you're using the native functionality right now, whether that's in Business Central or Great Plains, you know, you can see it's not very granular. Typically, you just have it, you know, at a state, you know, a county, maybe even at a city level if you've gotten to that level. But with Vertex, we go down to all of those lower level jurisdictions, whether that's a police jurisdiction, a transportation jurisdiction like we see here for Washington. There's science and cultural. We've got parishes in Louisiana that we actually have special taxation around. So again, Vertex is taking it to that lowest level and making sure that you're capturing all of the different obligations that you have to collect tax and remit tax for all of those jurisdictions. So again, these jurisdictions might change, and they frequently do from month to month. So again, instead of having to worry about that maintenance yourself, or somebody in the organization has to worry about that, Vertex is actually providing that in a monthly update that can be applied, and then all of that angst around, you know, changing rates and rules for the different jurisdictions is now, you know, a thing of the past. So again, great transparency, the ability to see this detail, the ability to then obviously report and remit on it, and then the nice thing of when that auditor comes knocking on your door, you will be well prepared and well documented with the information that you will be able to provide for that particular jurisdiction that's you know, asking for that information. The results of the automation you can see here, obviously the reduced risk and the audit performance. Again, nobody likes to talk about it, but again, it's nice to know that once you have an integrated solution, all of this is actually going to be done and automated so that you can then just run these reports and then provide that detail to that official from that jurisdiction that is auditing you. You get the improved internal process efficiency. Again, no more manual processes, whether that's, you know, uploading rates or manually updating the rates within tables, going ahead and, you know, actually filling out manually the returns. All of these things are going to be now done for you so that your tax team can actually be focused on other things besides just the mundane and the routine tasks. The tax accuracy obviously is increased. Again, when you're resourcing that out to whose business is 100%, making sure that the tax rates and rules are 100% right, it's good to know that you've got a partner in providing that service. The control and standardization of tax of data and processes. Again, having that centralized tax engine for anything that calls to it. So again, to make sure that if a tax call is made from your e-commerce engine, they're going to get the same answer from the shopping cart versus what they would do if they called in and that person taking the order is going straight through the ERP system. The same tax is going to be calculated. So that standardization of the tax call, how it's being processed through your engine, and also how it's going to be reported out is again captured by the automation with a tax solution. And then we talked about the scalability to help grow your business. Nothing worse than telling your organization, you know, you won't be able to expand globally maybe because tax is going to be holding you back, or we'd have to do more research, or we don't have the ability to do that. Nobody likes to be the department that holds the company back from achieving objectives that would help the business grow. and be more successful, not only in their own markets, but in future markets that they want to be into. Vendor selection criteria. This is some of just the questions that we talk about. Do they have the functions and features today for the future? The platforms? Can they help improve the tax processes? Free up those resources? Is this a company I want to do business with? Again, reputation is big here. Can it support my company? Are they going to collaborate with me? Are they going to provide me that support? Do they have partners that they work with? Or do they have in-house expertise to help service my account? All important questions, which leads us to what we do as Vertex. This is our company. This is what we 100% focus on, is making sure that we actually get these tax rates and rules correct for a business in all the different jurisdictions that they are. We deliver the most valued tax solutions for companies to do it wherever they want to do their business, whether that's domestically, globally, on an e-commerce platform, in just their ERP. Like I said, we've been doing this for a very long time. In fact, we are a 40-year industry leader. 60% of the Fortune 500 are our clients. However, we don't like to say that we only focus on large companies. We are also looking at partnering now with smaller and middle-sized firms. We recognize that a lot of these firms now, with a lot of these changes that have gone through, need a lot of help. So we've actually tailored our solutions and our messaging to now talk to companies to make sure that they are, getting the answers and the extra help that they need in getting a solution, an automated solution, implemented in their environment. Again, what's unique about us is we are a hybrid solution environment provider. We had talked about it. Again, if you wanted to be on-premise, you want to be cloud, or you want to be a hybrid between the two, Vertex offers that as a vendor. So again, it's a nice to have choices in that realm. Global tax management. We talked about, accounting for not only the sales and use taxes in the US, Canada, Latin America, Brazil's very complex, but also around the globe. You want a vendor that's going to be able to support those VAT calculations, have those SMEs in those different countries like Vertex does. We have offices in the UK, Germany, Brazil. We're looking at expanding over in Asia Pac. Again, having that expertise around the globe is going to be very helpful in making sure that you've got a provider that's going to support your needs everywhere that you want to be. And then we talk about those seamless integrations via connectors. We have those standard connectors through a lot of different ERP and e-commerce systems, but we also have the ability to actually connect via an API call. So if we don't have a standard connector, there is always the ability to build your own connector to our systems via our open API architecture. These are just some of the companies we wanted to throw up to show you, all of the different types of companies that we work with, big companies, small companies. It really doesn't matter. We want to make you successful in, accounting for tax and making sure that you are compliant. With that said, I know this is kind of a lot in a little bit of short time, but if there's any questions and answers that we might have really quick, we can maybe handle a couple.
I don't see any in the question queue, but by all means, if you happen to think of any after the webinar and would like to reach out with those questions, you can always contact us and we would be happy to get those answers for us or for you. I'm Lisa Cummings, and Ashley Canale and Chelsea Schlupp. Any three of us can help you with any questions you may have, and would be happy to have more of a discovery call with you if you want to do a deeper dive session with us. So, and thank you again, Mark and Sammy, for being on the call today. We really appreciate that.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. All right, well, I suppose since we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and end the webinar here. And everybody have a great day.